What song changed your whole taste in music? Raise your horns, Amon Amarth. I spent a long time thinking I didn't like metal, only to discover that metal is an incredibly broad genre with tons of variety. I listen to tons of metal now, but that song was definitely the first song I heard that it hit me like, oh shit, I kinda love this. I think I've had a lot of songs that introduced me to genres I didn't think I'd like previously, but I think metal was the most transformative for me. Other ones were Jazz Welcome Back, Samwise, Jodo, Hip Hop Nosebleed Section, Hilltop Hoods, The Unforgiven, Metallica. I was a pop music kid back in the day. That song was so good that it made it onto the pop stations. I was like, WTH is this? And sought the band out. Bought the Black Album, and that was all she wrote. I'm no longer a huge Metallica fan, but I can't stand pop music anymore. It was the gateway drug to better music though. I still like popish guitar music like Sloan, but that Whitney Houston, NKOTB, etc. was forever gone. Mad Villainy is the album that taught me to not just give up on music if it sounds weird to me. At first a song like Meat Grinder was the polar opposite of what I wanted from hip-hop, but enough stubborn re-listens later and I couldn't get enough off it, and started craving even more songs that defied my expectations. I'd actively seek out and return to well-made music I didn't click with just to see if I could have another epiphany like that. It was probably Ben Folds' 5 Philosophy. Freshman year of college, my roommate played a lot of Ben Folds on his computer speakers. Up to that point I was basically only interested in three-piece pop punk and ska. Not bad, but fairly basic shit. Hearing Ben play piano like a rock star completely opened my eyes to basically everything else. It actually kind of started an avalanche of self-examination that went way beyond music. Downfall of Us All by GR, saw commercials for the album on Fuse, then saw the video. It sounded like a cool party song, but then the short breakdown had me floored, as I never heard heavy vocals used for entire lines before. I was mostly just Blink-182 and pop punk stuff. Now it's post-hardcore and metalcore. All three genres now mix regularly, and Mark from Blink-182 even appears on a song for it. It sucks though. Violent Pornography, System of a Down. It was the right song at the right time for me. I was probably 14, stuck in the backseat of a tiny Ford Ranger, and the guy driving had it blasting. Those Rangers basically had a piece of cardboard in the back that would fold down that you could sit on, and the speakers were right by my head. I loved it, and it really made me aware of current rock music. I was 12 yo. Kinda into pop punk rock. Blink, Linkin Park, Smash Mouth, NSYNC. Shut Up, I was 12. Then I heard Lose Yourself. Bought the CD single, also had Renegade with Jay-Z on it. Cue deep dive into Eminem's entire catalog, gangsta rap of the 90s and 00s, then later into house hip-hop. I grew an appreciation for intricate lyricism, dynamic flow and different approaches to production. Are You Mine by the Arctic Monkeys. First song I have never enjoyed, and I listened to it 1,600 times in a year. It opened my eyes to indie alternative rock, and since then I've been obsessed with stuff like Block Party, Cage the Elephant, Arctic Monkeys, Black Honey, and inadvertently led to me rediscovering Gorillaz. I went from 1,000 or so minutes of music a year to almost 100,000 minutes. There's tons of genres that are great simply because they are made by art entrepreneurs with talent. Usually those are followed by copycats, and that's when the genre turns bad. So you should be open to all genres and tastes. On the other hand, I can't stand hip-hop or crime rapping to simplistic harmonies. Or rap thrash. So I suppose there's an opportunity there. Howard Alden's arrangement of I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles in the Woody Allen mockumentary Sweet Lowdown. I've been a hard rock, prog rock, metal guitar player for 20 years when I first heard it. I put my electric guitars in storage, bought some nice acoustics, and never looked back. I've spent the last 15 years developing a solo jazz guitar repertoire, maybe a bit more modern than most suggestions and comments here, but since listening to Spotify Hoon Sound View from Above, it really got me into drum and bass. How that track changes from uplifting to a bit sinister is so awesome. Make sure you turn the bass up. Will sound cliched by Bohemian Rhapsody. I wanted to know about rock music. Google greatest rock songs ever and listened to Stairway to Heaven first. I didn't like it. Thought I would give it another go, and then played Bohemian Rhapsody. Really loved it. It's not strictly a rock song, but that was my introduction. Have been hooked ever since. Enter Sandman. I'd never heard a metal song before in my life. The guitar sent me into a trance, and James's vocals hit like a truck. I was 5 years old. I fell down the rabbit hole of Metallica, Disturbed, A7X, Bullet for My Valentine, System of a Down, and so much more. Even as a 5-year-old, though, Lars's drumming sucked on that song. Master of Puppets, I've always exclusively listened to pre-2010 music, almost everything after is pure dog shit. Most of my playlist is 50s 80s rock, pop, country, ballads, whatever you could comfortably listen to in a car from '68, but never heavy metal, until I heard Master of Puppets. I'm absolutely in love with this song. I love Work by Butterfingers. Was never much into hip-hop or rap, but this introduced me to Aussie hip-hop, and I loved it. It's our sense of humor, especially with self-deprecating humor, and our inability to take anything seriously. That got me into The Herd, Seth Sentry, Draft Evil Eddie, and so many more. Metallica cover of Last Caress. It simultaneously got me into metal and punk when I was in the 5th grade. Before that I was mostly listening to rap DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Fat Boys, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Then I discovered more Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, Dokken. I have been into metal ever since. Leave Home Chemical Brothers. I was a little punk in the late 90s and only listened to alternative, grunge, and punk rock. I wouldn't have a bar of any kind of dance music. Then I heard this track on a bodyboarding video and it really changed my perspective of how good dance music could be. Organ Donor DJ Shadow took me on a journey through hip-hop, soul, funk, then from that later Afrobeat, Latin, reggae, disco, house, techno and basically anything sampled by anyone ever. Totally changed my outlook on music as I thought it could only be created by guitars and drums. Before that, Bleeding Mascara by Atreyu when I was just 9 years old. The day I downloaded that shit on LimeWire and played it for the first time transformed me from a normal-ass 9-year-old to a complete fucking edgelord. I'm still a metalhead, always will be, but I'm no longer an edgelord thankfully. I used to be really into pop punk emo music, guess it really was just a phase. But it all changed when I heard Bob Dylan's Don't Think Twice, It's Alright, which led me to the folky, singer-songwriter type music I still listen to now. Not the biggest fan of Electric Dylan though. Rocket by Def Leppard. I've been a pop music fan from a very young age thanks to mom and dad listening to top 40 pop and classic music, and as a 10-year-old I stumbled across the Rocket video on TV and was hooked. They were my gateway to rock and metal and I've never looked back. Pizza Pepperoni Ramen Iostrini. I used to go full Visual K with Versailles, Moix Moise, Malice Miser and the like. Now I wanted something more relaxed and stumbled upon Ramanaya. Later the crew grew with Grant Perez, Bruno Major, Johnny Stimson, Leve and Steven Sanchez. Roxette Dressed for Success. Was into modern rap, but the whole album completely made me go 180 degrees in my music taste. Green Day Basket Case made me interested in punk rock and something more raw. Depeche Mode Strangelove made me interested in electronic synth and new wave music. Enter Sandman by Metallica. I had mostly listened to pop, rap, classical, and some classic rock that my dad liked before that. I love the intensity, which isn't something I got from the kind of rock I had been exposed to before. Rock and metal has remained my favorite genre. I saw a stupid video on our Discord videos of some guy using a filter to put his eyes in his nose and expressively sing The Last Stand by Sabaton, and it's completely changed the trajectory of my life because I've lost 20 pounds of bad weight and gained an amazing girlfriend since. I loved 80s hip hop as a young kid but came to see it as a guilty pleasure once Nirvana and the like got hold of me. Then years later in high school I heard No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys for the first time and it reintegrated hip-hop into my musical schema. I used to listen to EDM, trance, etc. and my favorite artist is Martin Garrix, and I heard this song when I was little in a movie called Battleship. When I heard it for the second time it was all nostalgia and song was Thunderstruck by AC/DC. My all-time favorite moment, at the risk of sounding pretentious, Vidhar Vel Till Loft Tower Outside by Sigur Rós. The intense orchestral swells from a humble piano opening that leads to an absolute chaotic storm of bowed guitar and violins was like the soundtrack to the greatest movie I'd never seen. Taylor Swift We Are Never Getting Back Together. I used to be a total indie snob, pop music is all manufactured shite etc. Then that came on the radio, something switched on my brain. I learned to love fun pop music and it really opened me to more things. Kashmir, Led Zeppelin. Beforehand my taste in music was all over the place. Bit of everything, but Kashmir really shaped it and I started picking out what I truly enjoyed from the rest. It's still super varied these days, but not quite the mess it used to be. 2112. The opening synths blew me away. As they faded out there was a half-second pause and then Alex Lifeson power chords, Neil Peart thundering through his 214 drums, and Geddy Lee blasting his Ricky and screeching 4 octaves above middle C. I was hooked. I was really into the early 2000s pop-punk emo scene in high school, and I credit the Mars Volta with completely uprooting my music tastes. Try Roulette Dares the Haunt of King and Lionheart, of Monsters and Men. I was a fan of rock and heavy metal before, but since hearing that song I have liked the more indie rock songs. My current favorite bands would probably be of Monsters and Men, Mumford & Sons and the Lumineers. For start, it was still more fighting from FF7, than Otherworld from FFX. I liked how it sounded. Finally, I discovered Linkin Park in the end. This sound was a jump into the new metal scene. Today I listen everyday metalcore and other screamy sound. Out of Space by The Prodigy turned me on to EDM, which I'd always despised, and I still like it to this day. Actually, electronic music has probably been the most creative of the past decade or so. Not necessarily dance, but just synth sample based. Lose Yourself Eminem was my gateway to hip hop. Offshore by Chicane was my gateway to EDM. The soundtrack to Tony Hawk Pro Skater turned me on to modern punk ska. Seeing Beyoncé perform Halo at a live concert made me realize how amazing R&B can be. Aphex Twin Vord Hospen. Not a really popular track, but it made me dive into IDM and bass music. At that time I was just into hardcore, Frenchcore, that kind of thing. Now I find these genres pretty bland because I don't feel any emotion in it.